Welcome to Hannity, and this is a Fox News alert. The results from Iowa are now in. Fox News is projecting that Texas Senator Ted Cruz is the winner of the Republican Iowa caucuses with almost 28% of the vote. Donald Trump in second with 24%. Senator Marco Rubio in third place with 23%. And on the Democratic side at this hour, the caucuses are still too close to call. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders now in a dead heat. Earlier tonight, after his big win, Senator Cruz celebrated with his supporters in the Hawkeye State. Let's take a look.
God bless the great state of Iowa. Tonight is a victory for the grassroots. Tonight is a victory for courageous conservatives across Iowa and all across this great nation. And the next president of the United States will not be chosen by the media, will not be chosen by the lobbyists, will not be chosen by the Washington establishment, but will be chosen by the most incredible, powerful force where all sovereignty resides in our nation, by we the people, the American people.
Joining us now with reaction from the Washington Times, Charles Hurt, Fox News contributor Kirsten Powers, and Fox News legal analyst Peter Johnson Jr. Welcome you all. What a night. So many different storylines. One, the media, the polls wrong again, just like in 2000, 2004, 2008. Two, if you add up Trump and Cruz and Carson, you've got over 60% of Republicans, an anti-establishment night, an insurgency year this is turning into. And three, Hillary, the big loser of the night. Peter Johnson, Jr.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a lot of the points here. We're seeing a three-person race at this point. Big night for Marco Rubio, big night for Ted Cruz, bad night for Donald Trump. Proved that he's not what the press was saying that he was. He is invincible. He may not be indomitable. He is vulnerable. He's still a great candidate and a viable candidate, but he's got his problems going forward. And obviously he made some mistakes in terms of skipping the Fox debate and some other tactical issues. So we've seen that Trump, the bubble has burst tonight.
I don't know if I might disagree with you, Peter. And here, I would actually say the Republicans, the top three, all had a big win in some way. Here's my analysis. All right. Ted Cruz proves hard work pays off. He does the full Grassley, all 99 counties. Retail politics pays off. Trump, on paper, in a state that Huckabee and Santorum won, probably, I think his analysis was right, he probably did get the advice from political experts, don't go to Iowa. It's probably a hard state for you to win. And third, I'd say, yeah, Marco Rubio outperformed all expectations and all the poll numbers. Big win for him in that regard. What's your take on? Yeah.
I would just say there's a difference between fandom and supporters. A lot of people will go see Donald Trump at a rally because they loved his television show. They like what he has to say. But the Cruz folks, the Rubio folks, those people were supporters. They came out and they worked this election, and the results show. The results show.
No. Absolutely. Listen, organization still matters. I think, Charles, we've got to admit here, Iowa is a retail political state, and people expect to be courted and have their for you to shake their hands and kiss their babies and go to their meetings and have coffee in their coffee shops. And for the most part, Trump defied that, let's say, typical model or old-fashioned model.
Sure. And, Ted Cruz's victory tonight, you cannot take it away from him. It's tremendous. He got the a record number in history of Republican caucus goers. So it's tremendous. But the flip side of it is, and you touched on this, look at the Iowa GOP caucus goers don't have a terrific record in the past of picking the eventual winner. In the last two times, you have Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee. And Ted Cruz very much used their playbook. As Peter said, huge ground game. He went all in there, courted went statewide, and ultimately had to win. and also was very overtly religious about courting evangelical voters. And so while it's a tremendous victory, if you look back at the past the past 16 years, it doesn't necessarily translate into places like New Hampshire and then going forward.
But you know what? He did show hard work pays off. Going to all 99 counties pays off. Retail politics works. And he's still in second in New Hampshire. Now, it'll be interesting to see polls in the next 2 or 3 days, although I think quoting polls should be a thing of the past. Kirsten, there's no doubt in my mind the biggest loser tonight is Hillary Clinton. She can spin it any way she wants. What I saw tonight was a very angry candidate, very frustrated. Ed Henry reporting that she was supposed to do a rope line. It was supposed to be a big celebration. And then she literally shifts radically to the left on gay rights, on free tuition, on Obamacare. I mean, she sounded like Bernie Sanders in her speech, except an angrier, insincere version.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything that you said. So, first of all, she can't celebrate because the results haven't been really called yet, so there's nothing to celebrate. But here's the thing. In the same way that Ted Cruz had to win Iowa, Bernie Sanders really had to win Iowa. This is not a state that is built for Hillary because it's already an extremely liberal electorate in a normal caucus. And if you look at the numbers that we've had tonight, you have 10% more people identifying as very liberal than you even had in 2008. So it was already a very liberal electorate, made even more liberal. You have 43% of likely caucus goers had identified in a recent poll as themselves as socialists. So these are people that are predisposed to Bernie Sanders. And what Hillary Clinton had to do is she kind of had to hold him at bay. And it really was Bernie's to lose. So I don't think you can read too much into this in terms of how this is going to affect Hillary down the road, because this, and the other thing is this is an extremely white state. And she does much better. She's going to end up doing much better probably with African American voters. And so I really think you can overread this, Sean, because you hate Hillary.
No, it's not that I hate Hillary. And I'll tell you what, when you compare the speeches tonight, Peter Johnson Jr., Bernie Sanders, to me, he's a true believer. He's the real deal. He's a socialist. Hillary, angry, shifting on the fly, seeming to be the politician. She'll become whatever she needs to be to win. And I don't think anger and switching your opinions and your core values is going to win you the race in the long run.
I think older and younger voters both, even when they don't agree with Bernie Sanders, and I vigorously disagree, and I know you do, they say there's an honesty about him. There's an integrity in terms of his beliefs, no matter how misguided. There's a fervor. There's a deep decency that he exemplifies. There's a belief system that transcends money and power and connections and emails. And people say, yeah, that's the America that I want, as much as he is misguided. I saw the same thing in Rubio's speech tonight. A young, vital guy, a guy strong enough to say, I'm proud of my immigrant roots, even when some candidates want to attack immigrants. I see this as the face of a new Republican Party that's shaking out tonight. Two of the top three Hispanic Americans who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. That's the Republican Party. That's not the Democratic Party. That's what I saw tonight.
And Charles, you've been pretty much a strong supporter of Donald Trump. I've got to believe now, especially after New Hampshire, that a lot of these candidates are going to begin to drop out. It seems to me the establishment will coalesce around Marco Rubio. It's interesting to me because he was a Tea Party favorite back in 2010. And but for comprehensive immigration reform, I think he would have had a lot more support from conservatives. But that's been a big obstacle for him.
Yeah, and of course that's also going to be a very big problem for Ted Cruz going forward. If the establishment does start pressuring some of the other candidates to get out so that that money and that support can go behind some establishment person, I think that it's not going to just hurt Donald Trump, it's going to hurt Ted Cruz as well. But going back to something, you were talking about how so many people got everything wrong here. One of my favorite things that got wrong, that we saw tonight that was clearly wrong, was that very gracious concession speech that Donald Trump gave. every single one, everybody in the media predicted that if he suffered a single little loss somewhere, he would lose it. He couldn't handle it. Everything would fall apart. And that's not at all what happened. He walked out there. He thanked Iowa. He said he was honored to come in second place. And he reminded people that he had no business coming in second place, which is true. He had no business coming in second place in Iowa, yet he did.
And you know, Peter, I actually agree with Charles on this.
I do too.
On paper, it's not a state that I think anyone would have predicted that he would even be competing in.
Well, it's incredible that he did as well as he did coming from where he started. And the Donald Trump that I saw tonight is the Donald Trump that I know well and that I like. I've represented Donald Trump. I've disagreed with him on a lot of things that he's done and that he said, but I do believe that he has the good of the country in mind. And if he can start to talk about policies and facts and proposals and a way forward, then he can win this nomination. If he doesn't, he will lose. And this is the breaking point for him now.
Would you say, Peter, two improvements that his campaign could make? One is organization. Ted Cruz had a phenomenal organization. If he duplicates that in New Hampshire and South Carolina, he will be a formidable candidate. If Rubio continues this, he will be formidable. It seems to me organization was lacking for Trump in Iowa, number one. And number two, yeah, I agree with both you guys. That's a side of Trump that's humble. There was empathy there, a little humility, and a graciousness that I think would serve him well if he continues it.
Because personally, there's a kindness and there's a generosity about him in so many things that people haven't seen, and it hasn't come through. All that being said, he lost in the state of Iowa, as much as he said that he was going to win. And all the polls were wrong, and a lot of the people who said that they were going to vote for him didn't, for whatever reason. They need to understand why they didn't.
Yeah, certainly a big night for Ted Cruz by winning. New Hampshire is now, what, a week from today, if we're looking at the real hours Eastern time. All right, I got one last question for Kirsten, because, Kirsten, I want to go back. Whether it's 49.8 for Hillary and 49.6 for Bernie Sanders, how do you say that that's a win when she was the front runner the entire time? There was an expectation that she'd run away with this.
Well, there was an expectation before Bernie Sanders really became a serious candidate and took off, and she has you know, an opponent. And if you're going to look at this state, this is a state that is much more favorable to Bernie Sanders on a million different ways. I mean, I listed them. I didn't even get into all the different. There's many other ways that it favors him. And so I think that if you look at this state, it's not representative of most other states, and they're certainly not the states that are going to be coming up after New Hampshire. And I think that he should have won in the same way that I think on the Republican side, I don't think Donald Trump needed to win here. I think if he had won, it would have been a huge deal. It would have been a game changer to a certain extent. But he didn't need to win. Ted Cruz needed to win because this state is built for Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz had poured everything into it. So, you know, I think that she, through organization, was able to kind of hold him at bay. But I don't think that this was ever a state running against him where she was going to fare well.
All right, guys, thanks so much for being with us.